These past few months and weeks, countries around the globe have been grappling with the deadly COVID-19 threat. We have seen panic, fear, anger, and tears from leaders in public places. No one could have imagined that countries so far apart and so different in a world seemingly so big would become so small and will across the continents face the same crippling challenge. Our country has had the benefit of watching this unfold in many respects in the worst possible way for citizens across the world, and have used the opportunity to learn from good and bad experiences whilst crafting our response. I must, as always, commend the Ministry of Health for their proactiveness and for briefing Cabinet as early as January on COVID-19, and for the Honorable Minister's comprehensive ministerial statement to the House of Assembly as early as February 14th. Health advice through the Public and Environmental Health Board, health leaders, has poised TCI to take early proactive measures. When we introduced regulations in response to this pandemic, ours were the furthest in the region at the time. We activated the National Emergency Operations Center, the structure used in our context for hurricanes, to better coordinate activities to manage and structure our preparedness, mitigation, and response. We strengthened measures as recent as Friday to contain and control the spread, and last evening the emergency powers commenced under the declared state of emergency. And all these steps were taken prior to any news of a confirmed case in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Whilst this is being lauded by our counterparts, we are not boastful of this, but proud of our health team who never shied away from their role and advice. This is not to say that we've taken all the right steps to educate or to eradicate the threat, but these measures certainly are mitigating measures and will go for naught if we as a people do not embrace the measures in the spirit in which they are being introduced. Yesterday, they had an extraordinary meeting to consider further recommendations from the Public and Environmental Health Board and the National Emergency Operations Center. After hours of careful and measured consideration, we have agreed the following. For the purposes of preventing, controlling, and suppressing the spread of the virus, a curfew is being imposed. Effective Thursday, March 26th, a curfew is hereby imposed on all persons and businesses from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., save for any exemptions provided. Effective Saturday, March 27th at 5 a.m., a curfew is imposed every day for 24 hours until Tuesday, April 14th, except as provided herein or as may be approved by the governor. There are essential services that will be allowed to operate, and a comprehensive list will be made available through various platforms immediately following this address, as well as 12 p.m. today, and every other hour the measures will be aired over RTC. For the purposes of preventing, controlling, and suppressing the spread of the virus, residents are to shelter in place and shall remain confined to their place of residence, inclusive of their yard space, to avoid contact outside their family, save for the exemptions provided. Work remotely. For the purposes of preventing, controlling, and suppressing the spread of the virus, all businesses and offices may only continue their business operations by allowing their employees to work remotely from home, utilizing virtual means unless workers are permitted to work under these regulations or are designated as essential services. These provisions are likewise extended to the public service. For the purpose of preventing, controlling, and suppressing the spread of the virus, all establishments, institutions, businesses, offices, stores, and organizations shall suspend operations except those designated as essential services in the regulations and for the hours permitted. Stricter social distancing protocols. For the purposes of preventing, controlling, and suppressing the spread of the virus, there will be strict distancing protocols for those offering and accessing essential services. There will be a ban on social gatherings. No person shall host or attend any social gatherings except those approved by the governor on the advice of the Ministry of Health. for the purposes of preventing, controlling, and suppressing the spread of the virus, all public beaches shall be closed. There will be a restriction where no person is allowed to visit any place of quarantine, a patient at the hospital or under residential care at a facility, the detention center, or the prison. Under these regulations, for the purposes of preventing, controlling, and suppressing the spread of the virus, the governor shall have the power to requisition any building, ship, aircraft, vehicle, etc. with notice during this period of emergency to be used for the purposes of stopping or controlling the spread. He shall likewise have the power to reasonably requisition management and control of any essential services for the purposes of preventing, controlling, and suppressing the spread of the virus. Enforcement of these provisions carried out by a police officer, he will have the power to stop, detain, and arrest anyone in violation of these regulations. And when arresting, will have the power to confiscate any vehicle being used by a person in breach of the regulations. No one under these provisions shall obstruct any officer empowered under these regulations to carry out their duties. And no person shall declare the sale or offer of sale of goods during this period of public emergency at an unconscionable price. Effective tomorrow, 26 March 2020, all returning residents are banned to the Turks and Caicos Islands for a period of 21 days. We have now agreed to take this step following our repeated appeals. Effective tomorrow, 26 March 2020, all inter-island travel is restricted, save for those accessing essential travel for essential services only. Please note that all provisions remain under review, but the 24-hour curfew shall remain in place for a period of 21 days until Tuesday, April 14th. I encourage with the essential services that will be allowed during this time and the wider regulations. I wish to remind us further that emergency powers came into effect last evening under a declared state of emergency at midnight, and this allows for ease of governance. We assure our people that these powers will be accessed and responsibly used for the purposes of preventing, controlling, and suppressing the spread of this virus. This leadership partnership that you see before you today is vital for us at this time, but your role is even more important as citizens. In addition, effective last night or midnight, it is now a punishable offense to spread false information. Please be guided by the regulations as to what constitutes this offense. Our dashboard released daily shows in our local context one confirmed case of COVID-19 in these islands. I place emphasis on confirmed. We want you to behave as if there are more, because there probably are. We want you to take note of symptoms and use the numbers provided by the Ministry of Health. If you experience any of these symptoms, please do not go to the hospital. Please use the numbers provided. As I conclude, I share that in all of Cabinet's deliberations during the threat of this pandemic, we have been guided by 4 principles, but atop the list is the health and well-being of our people. And so we have had to make some tough decisions that adds to all of our financial state. There must never be a competition between the economy and our health. Health must win every time. It is a sacrifice that we have all to make as leaders, and I know and I'm confident that this is the right decision. In these times, government do have a responsibility to aid our people. And as promised, the government, like a few governments thus far, will present a list of measures. And so tomorrow at 2 p.m., I will announce the Turks and Caicos Islands stimulus package in response to COVID-19. Countries dealing with the fallout have had to juggle figures that are shifting by the day. The response is a measured one, and one that has looked around sectors to see how we can assist individuals and businesses. As we are all uncertain of the length of this period, we ask that you tighten your bootstraps where you are able to and consider the uncertainty. While TCI government will do what it can, We ask corporate citizens to not close their bowels of compassion. And we ask us as individual citizens to be our brother's keepers. We need each other. The road ahead may become increasingly difficult, and these are indeed uncertain times. But I remain confident that we can take, if we take individual responsible action, we can come through this the best way possible. These are difficult times. And this hand that has been dealt to every country across the globe has challenged us not just as leaders, but as citizens to take responsible and proactive steps. This uncertainty does not make us powerless. In fact, it empowers each and every one of us to be responsible and to take our health and the health of our brothers and sisters seriously. And it also has rewarded those who act responsibly together. Whilst the government and the world are taking serious measures to protect its people, our efforts are only as good as the individual. We need you to partner with us by breaking contact and by heeding health practical advice. Wash your hands properly. Use a 70% alcohol-based sanitizers. Cover your mouth when you cough. Cover your nose when you sneeze. Dispose of any tissue properly. Avoid touching your mouth, your eyes, or your nose. Sanitize frequently. Use surfaces, including the ever-present cell phone, and practice social distancing. May God bless us all, and may God continue to bless these beautiful by nature Turks and Caicos Islands.
By now, I suspect that if you're listening, you stopped doing what you were doing, and you will have paused. You will understand the importance of what you've just heard. What the Premier announced isn't an announcement to listen to as you do something else. This isn't the background noise to your normal day. What was just said was important. In my own words, I'm now going to amplify what was said, reinforce what was said, associate myself completely with what was said. Amplification and repetition at this point is probably helpful. Whoever you are on these islands, old or young, citizen, resident or visitor, whichever island you live on, whatever your ethnicity, however you make your living, whether you are rich or poor, you are now one. We're now using emergency powers that came into effect last night on your collective behalf for the good of the community. This is going to impact on you in very significant ways for at least the next 3 weeks and perhaps beyond. We are about to go through one shared, unifying experience. How we come out of it at the other end will almost entirely depend on your sense of civic duty, your sense of community spirit, while not being connected to your wider community. Your integrity as a person in doing the right thing, not just with self-interest